Okay. We'll call the meeting to order. Your collection is growing. Madam Clerk.
We have one additional other business item other than the one raised by Councillor Zuccolo. It concerns dead park trees and was raised by Councillor Hodge.
Okay. Alrighty. So we've got the agenda before us. OB items 1 and 2. A motion to approve.
Move the agenda.
Second. Moved by Hodge, second by Asmundson. In favor. Opposed. Carried unanimously. Go ahead.
Our first item is a presentation by the Director of Public Works concerning Easy Street with UV reflective technology.
Good
afternoon, gentlemen.
Dan Mooney to join me because he was part of this when we started it.
That one.
Thank you very much. Welcome. And the bar has been set high for regaling us with engineering reports, so over to you.
So anyways, just so everybody knows, UV with or Easy Street is the different colored pavement that you see up by the Mariner Firefall. So this is just kind of an update on the performance of it and thing over the last couple of years. So what is Easy Street? It's a high-performance cold asphalt product. It uses a clear polymer binder. It's produced and applied at ambient temperatures, so it doesn't require heat to produce it. So consequently, you can store it for extended periods of time because it's just at room temperature. No waste, of course, because it can be reused and can be stored. And provides a quiet ride surface. It's like a porous asphalt. The UV reflective technology, it's the same as the regular Easy Street, except there's a polymer which is clear as opposed to the black that you would see that's normally put into an asphalt that gives it the black color that it has. The reason the UV has the light color is because it's a clear polymer that's added to it to bind the material together. And then also they added a patented UV reflective material to it, which helps just to reflect some of the light. So here's a little picture of the different types of road surfaces: concrete in the bottom, hot mix asphalt on the left-hand side, and the UV with Easy Street on the right-hand side. The albedo values are how they reflect light. So as you can see, the UV and concrete are very comparable in the amount of light that they would reflect as compared to the hot mix asphalt, which has a lower value. So it's been used for over 15 years across North America and in 20 countries worldwide. Now that is Easy Street, so it would be the black Easy Street that's being used for the past 20 years. The clear polymer and the reflective technology is what's been recently introduced. Primarily, it's been used as a pothole patching product because you can store it just in a bag. You don't need to keep it under special conditions or anything like that. There has been a couple of full-scale paving projects in British Columbia. One was a 1 kilometer section of Highway 99 in Delta, just outside the Delta Works Yard. If you're traveling towards White Rock, I believe, you'll pass over it. And then a section of University Boulevard up at UBC, but that section has since been removed because they redid the whole road. Main Road approached the city. Main Road is has the patent to the material, and they wanted to try a full-scale project. So they approached us to see if we were interested in it. The material was placed originally on November 4th, 2013, so approximately 2 years ago, and it was the first ever full-scale installation of this material. The test section, as you know, is Mariner Drive between Como and Mara. The northbound section was completely milled out and repaved with conventional asphalt, so we had a comparison to the Easy Street. The southbound section, only 50 millimeters was milled out and 50 millimeters put in of the Easy Street. And the rationale behind that was one of the characteristics of Easy Street is that it's self-healing, so you don't get reflective cracking coming through the pavement as you would if you put good asphalt down on top of bad asphalt. So we wanted to test also that self-repairing tendency that it has. So some of the challenges that came with putting this down, because it is a new material, preparing the paving equipment was required a little bit of extra care in that you had to make sure that it was quite clean, that there was no tar left over from previous use and things like that, because the material would stick to it and wouldn't come out of the paver properly and things like that, and wouldn't roll properly on the rollers either unless they were made sure that they were cleaned up properly. Cold weather adds a little bit of challenge to placement because it just makes it more viscous, makes it more thicker, and makes it more like a honey type of a material as opposed to being a little bit more flowable. And of course, it would be more difficult to compact in the colder weather as well. Some of the benefits of the Easy Street with UV technology was it's produced and placed at ambient temperatures, like I mentioned. Unused material can be stored. The cold application extends the construction season because now we're not stuck to the requirements of 7 degrees and rising before we pave. We can actually pave in colder weather. Increased durability of the road surface because it is self-healing. If a crack forms, it should seal back up, so it would, you wouldn't get the water going in there and breaking up the asphalt a little bit more. It's acquired a riding surface because it is a porous asphalt, so it absorbs some of the road noise. The reflectivity of it reduces heat absorption and improves visibility. And there's potentially some significant greenhouse gas reductions around the fact that you're not using tremendous amounts of heat to A, manufacture it, and B, place the material. Some of the other life cycle and durability benefits. So because it has the self-healing characteristics, as I said before, we can look at just milling 2 inches out and filling in the 2 inches again, rather than going a full depth when you have alligator asphalt and cracks and things like that. The reflective surface reduces UV and heat absorption, both of which are the main factors in contributing to the degradation of pavement. It's heat and the sunlight. The cooler asphalt surface reduces the propensity to rutting. Again, as asphalt gets hot, it gets soft. I don't know if you've noticed that on the highway sometimes you'll see those ruts in the road. That's just from the asphalt getting hot and heavy trucks driving on it. It just squishes the asphalt out over time. And then the cooler asphalt is subject to less stress because there's less expansion and contraction. And of course there's the reduced urban heat island effect because we're not having a hot black asphalt in the middle of an urban area. So once the material was put down, we wanted to, and Main Road wanted to test some of these characteristics that we talked about. So they undertook an extensive testing program which lasted approximately 2 years. We just got the results back in the fall from them. And Dan will go over some of the results from the testing.
Thanks, Jamie. So,
Right-handed.
So one of the things that the consultants worked on was the pavement temperature, and we inserted 4 probes into the pavement, 4 in each, 4 in the conventional asphalt and 4 in the UV, and then they recorded the temperature at various times of the year. What you see here is one of the temperature samples from one of the locations. The red line refers to the conventional hot mix asphalt, and the blue line is the Easy Street. And what you'll see is both a warmer temperature in the middle of the night and a cooler temperature in the heat of the day. This particular one was taken in November, so the temperatures are relatively cool, but it's that spread of temperatures over the pavement that is reduced both in the evening and in the midday that we believe gives us the potential for a longer life. We also did light testing, that is the albedo reflectivity. So again, we picked 4 spots, 2 in the conventional paving on the northbound lanes and 2 in the UV reflective in the southbound lanes. And the results showed that the UV mix had a much higher albedo than the regular hot mix, and it was actually about 50% better in terms of reflectivity. Nothing shows it better than the images at night, and this is a night photo taken. On the left-hand side is the Easy Street in the southbound lanes, a lot less glare, the ability to see the pavement lines. On the right-hand side of the slide is the conventional hot mix, which obviously this is also a night that's raining, so the road is flooded. You get a lot of glare. You can't really see the traffic lines there at all. The third grouping of testings, and the final one they did, was noise. And for this one, we actually picked 4 spots, one in each of the control site with the conventional mix going northbound, one in the Easy Street reflective going southbound, and then we took 2 further south, one in the Easy Street, and then the second one is actually in the worn asphalt, because as pavement wears and it gets smoother, it actually generates more wheel noise. So the results of the sound actually showed that there was a reduction in the 5 to 9.9 decibel level. That's dB over a 24-hour period, and was actually felt to have significant noise benefits. In fact, we had some calls from people. The test section, as you know, lies between the fire hall and Mundy Park, and the residential area is just south of there. And actually we had calls from people in the residential area that noticed that the noise was still relevant or increased in front of their home. What they actually, rather than hear that slow, gradual approaching noise, is as they came across the quiet pavement, it was relatively quiet, and then all of a sudden they hit the change. And that's actually, they felt there was actually an increase in the noise, but really what it was we had quietened it up to the residential area, and then they had what they always had, but they hadn't had that build up and so on. So this is a summary of some of the results. Reduced road noise. We believe that the claims made by the proponents as they approached us have been substantiated, and we've got evidence in terms of sound measurements that they took out there with sound meters. Increased durability and life cycle costs. There's some evidence, and that's in the measurements and the observations, but we believe this is only 2 years in, and so it's still fairly early in the life cycle. Staff safety, again, there's some evidence of that. It's cool when it's placed, so the potential for burns and emissions, inhalation from the workers is reduced. There's also benefits in terms of minimal delays for the paving, because anytime you have to mill down through all of the asphalt and get right down to the gravels, you have a much longer construction period. You have a much more stringent traffic control in terms of being allowed to have traffic rolling on the open gravel as opposed to just milling off the top surface and allowing them to still drive on that alligator below base. Road safety enhancement and visibility, lighting benefits, some evidence, again, measurements in terms of the albedo as well as the observations from the night photo that you saw. Increased albedo, the reflectivity has been substantiated, and that was through measurements with their light meters that they took out there. Decreased heat absorption, substantiated with the temperature measurements and the statistical test that tested those 4 sites on each side of the road. Having a control site was very beneficial in terms of some of these test results, because we could actually compare, and there was no variables like traffic or conditions that differentiated between the two. The GHG reductions, there was some evidence. There were some measurements and statistical tests and observations. I would say that this was a pilot and a first time, and there were certainly many things that the contractor learned that they would do differently and better in the future in terms of GHG reductions, including better calibration and measurement through the process so that they could track it a little bit better. In terms of air quality improvements, there wasn't anything tested, but you could tell as they were placing conventional asphalt. We had some photos that showed typical emissions coming off the back of a paving machine, and when they were placing the Easy Street, there was none of that.
So in terms of cost, the full depth reclamation and 100 millimeters of asphalt is about $40 northbound. That's what it cost us for this particular project. That was the, or not what it cost us actually, that was what it cost Main Road to do the work. Milling and paving of 75 millimeters of asphalt, this comes from the city's records. So this is actually what we've paid in the last year and stuff like that. We're paying about $44 per square meter to mill and pave 75 millimeters of asphalt. On this particular project, milling and paving with 50 millimeters of Easy Street was about $50 per square meter. So it's slightly higher than milling, what we currently do, which is milling and paving of 75 millimeters. But it's a less of a thickness of asphalt as well to achieve the same thing. The material itself, Easy Street, the material itself is approximately twice the cost of conventional asphalt, just to buy the material itself. Most of the reason for that actually is volume. Right now, very small volumes being used. The contractor feels that if they can get higher volumes and things like that, the prices will start to come down and things. But that's basically the reason why it's so costly. Conclusions. Generally, the pilot project was a success. It demonstrated the characteristics that were anticipated. Maybe not to the degree that Main Road had hoped. They had hoped for a little bit, I think, better results than what they got, but they were pleased with what they saw. The greenhouse gas benefits were not fully proven or quantified, and as Dan said, mostly that is because of the calculation and how they were tracking the amount of heat that they had to add to produce the material. Because this was the first time that they did it, they had some issues and some hiccups with that, so they weren't able to accurately account for the green gas emissions, but there definitely would be a reduction. There's no doubt about it. It's more costly than conventional asphalt, as I mentioned, and it could be beneficial under certain conditions. So if you needed to pave when it was cold, there was an emergency, and for some reason you needed to pave, it would be a good material to use for that. If you had a place where noise was a problem and you wanted to reduce the noise, it's a candidate for doing something like that. But to use it in general paving right now, it is a little bit costly to do that. The future of it, from a producer perspective, again, as I said, at a small scale, it's very expensive and it's difficult to support. They need a larger base to bring the cost of that down. The synthetic clear asphalt binder has some limitations. It comes from Europe currently. It's expensive to get and to transport over here. It's a little bit difficult to handle in that they've learned that they need to just warm it up a little bit to be able to use it properly. It comes in a block in a container, and if it's cold out, it's like a big block of ice. They need to run some steam through it to warm it up and stuff. And then they are working to secure a domestic supplier, which will hopefully help to bring the cost down. And that's it.
So, thank you. Councillor Reid.
Okay, I'll be quick with questions, but thank you for the presentation. The difference in price, is that just for the product, or does it count labor savings, which, listening to you, I'm assuming we must have labor savings?
There is some labor savings. The dollar values that I showed, the $40 per square meter, $44, is for both product and installation.
It counts the labor then as well.
That accounts for labor.
Because the staff safety was good, but I thought maybe we'd save on the labor because they didn't have to go down so far, et cetera, et cetera. The big thing for me right now is the reflective part of it. Because this year, I don't know why, but this year especially, more people are having trouble with the glare on all the roads. And I've seen, in 4 trips to Langley in the last 3 days, I've seen about 5 accidents just coming from the bridge to the freeway. And the lines, you can't even see them, and the road goes like this, and people are going like this and crash. And the same is around here. So would this product work if you could just use it for, like, is it like a paint? Is there like a paint that comes from these people that you could do lines with, is my question.
No, it's not a paint. It actually is mixed.
No, I know what this is, but the same, is there a
paint like that?
Yeah.
Not that we're aware of anyways. No.
Okay, so my big thing on all of this is thank you. I think it's worth pursuing, I really do. But I think right now with this El Nino we're getting with the wind and the rain and that, we've got to do something to our roads to make these lines stand out, and we've got to do it now. Thank you very much.
Councillor Asmussen.
Good presentation. I like this product. I think it's a good direction to go in. I guess have you done the bigger analysis when you talk about the self-healing and extending the life? And so when we talk about the application being more expensive, have we done the analysis to say, okay, if it's self-healing, we're not going to have the expense of crack sealing.
Yeah.
The lifetime will be whatever longer. So if you can factor that back in, does it then make it worth the cost?
I know you're talking like a life cycle cost.
Yes, life cycle.
We'll need a little bit more time, so we're going to continue, and Main Road's going to continue to monitor it. So we'll need a little bit more time with the product to be able to look at a proper life cycle analysis. It's only been 2 years now. Every evidence we've seen is that it is self-healing, but we'd like to see what happens with the asphalt across the street because it's fairly new, and be able to compare the two and do a bit of a life cycle analysis. We can compare how much we've repaired this versus how much we've repaired that. And,
Like in 5 years.
yeah, and like in about 5 years.
5 year period of time.
Yeah, about 5 years.
Okay. I mean, the biggest thing I like about this, and I've driven down that test section a number of times, is a simple noise reduction. And you talk to people that live close by that area, that how much they appreciate that fact. That it's something I think I really want us to look at on larger volume jobs. I think when we should look at our arterials, let's say Como Lake and Austin as an example, that if we can reduce the noise that is substantial here along those roads, we'll get a better quality of life. I think if we can have see what the cost is in a larger volume job down, let's say Como Lake. Because I think we also want to look at those, when we look at straight costs, what are the other social costs that we can looking at for the reduction in noise and the quality of life for people in those areas? Is there a GHG that's going to need more study? The life cycle cost on it. But I do think on those, not on every street, but I think on arterials to start out with, Mariner, Como Lake, Austin, for example, would be a good place to do a larger sections of it. Just because I think, one, again, the reflectiveness and seeing, I know the difference in driving professionally, how it helps you see the road better, creates safer conditions. But I think for the people in our city, especially that are butting major roadways, it's tremendous. The people down there have complained to me because they think it's almost like when it hits that intersection, like a slapping sound, because it goes from quiet to all of a sudden they've got the noise, right? But I think it's been, most people when they first saw it were weird.
Yes.
But after that, it's been loved, right? So, no, I'm very supportive of this. I'd like to look at those things and report back to us on some of those ideas. Because I think with Fortis coming in, there may be an ability to work a larger test pilot with them, looking at what they may be doing to our Como Lake Road. So maybe an opportunity to combine the two.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
Where's Stuart?
Freeze thaw. It's permeable. Has there been any issue on freeze thaw yet?
We haven't had any indications of anything with the freeze thaw, but the water, in theory, goes through it and hits the impermeable layer, and then will run off to the gutter, and we have some outlets at the gutter to allow the water to shed. But last winter, we didn't have any, like we would have thought maybe something would pop out with the freeze thaw, but there was nothing last winter. So.
Because there's permeable pavements that aren't certified for this kind of weather or this kind of climate because of that. And I just assumed that this being permeable, we're going to get water into it. And 2 or 3 years from now, it starts cracking.
Yeah. But I think the other thing that happens too is because it's so permeable, when the water freezes, it has a place to go as well.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And on the visibility side, I agree completely that's, to me, its biggest advantage is that in the rain, we have too many people, someone this morning, again, jaywalking, and when there's glare on the road, it's just horrible. Maybe it'd be much cheaper to try to get people not to jaywalk, but this, to me, is that manages that. And I also talked to some of the guys at WinVan when they were learning, and I guess there is a hell of a learning curve that's involved here, both learning and the short supply of materials. And I assume that and they said the same thing, was that it should theoretically be about the same cost if it ramped up to be the kinds of volumes that we need. And it might be worth contemplating it for some of our DCC eligible roads where noise is going to be an issue. Granted, we just paved one of them, but to me, there's some real, the advantages are in the noise and the visibility, and we should give it another look. Thanks.
Councillor Wilson.
You mentioned Highway 99 had some form of this. Is it the same, or was it slightly different?
Black. It's like conventional asphalt. But it's easy street, but not easy street with UV.
Right.
Yeah.
And how long has that been in place for?
2 years now.
4 years, roughly.
4 years now.
So just because it does have the UV part of it, it's still the same. materials?
It's basically the
same
same material. The difference is because it's black, the binder that's in it is a black color,
Right.
whereas the binder that's in ours is a clear color.
But should that affect the durability of it?
Because it won't have the same heat effects, so the temperatures you're going to find are very comparable. And temperature and that oscillation between cold and warm is one of the main factors in pavement degradation.
So have they noticed much problem on Highway 99?
I actually haven't really talked to them about that. Not that I'm aware, that they told us anyways.
Because if that would be less durable than what we have,
In theory,
we
yes.
haven't had any problems, then I guess you get to extrapolate. Why? Well, I don't want to. The cost. Can you go back to that cost comparison? Because I'm trying to understand the difference. So we have 3 different bullet points, but they're all kind of apples to oranges. I'm just trying to understand. So full depth reclamation and 100 millimeter asphalt. That cost.
So on this project, we milled out 100 millimeters of asphalt and replaced it with 100 millimeters of asphalt.
And that
it was
costs
$40 per square meter. That's the northbound side.
Including labor.
The city, traditionally, we mill out 75 millimeters on our road projects. So that's the second bullet there is actual costs that the city incurs on our capital projects. So right now, the city pays $44 per square meter for 75 millimeters to be milled out and replaced.
So less is being milled out, less is being put in, but the cost is more.
Is more, because the material is more.
But, well, if I compare the second bullet point to the first bullet point, the 100 millimeters of asphalt.
Yeah, the first bullet point is what we paid on this particular project, what
Normally it would be more.
cost. It normally would be a little bit
Okay,
more.
that's what I couldn't figure out. Okay. And then when we do the easy street, if it's just repaving the top layer, you don't have to mill out as much, so we should save money there.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Council O'Neill.
Yes, thanks. So for the, would it make sense, or have you thought about keeping some sort of stockpile of this material that is the black color, with the black binder, to use to repair asphalt potholes and things like that? So you didn't have to get a big heating thing and everything like this, but it's much easier to keep in the back of the truck or something like that without all the temperature considerations that you normally
We do
have.
actually, yeah.
You do have that?
Yeah, we do have some of the black that we use for.
Oh, you're
repairing
using
potholes.
that?
Yeah, we do use it for patching potholes. Like as I mentioned,
Okay.
the earliest use of it was just for pothole
Right.
patching, and we used
And
it
you
for
were
that.
using, and you're continuing to use that?
Yes,
Okay, that's good. Okay, that's good. I didn't get that from the presentation.
it's the black stuff.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
We also have a small supply of the tan
Of the-
as well.
the clear
Just
stuff.
in case there would be a utility cut there or anything else, we can go in and match that with the tan as well.
Yeah, and on the speaking of back to the black, back to black. The Councillor Wilson asked about Highway 99, and presumably, if Easy Street is self-healing, that even though there's extra stress being put on the pavement because of the heat fluctuations stuff, the self-healing aspect would negate that and would still be a benefit, right?
To an extent.
To an extent, yeah.
And the third thing, talk about the unknown quantity of GHG benefits, and you just talked about point of application and what you sort of intuited, but if we're talking about the asphalt binder having to come here from Europe, then there's obviously GHG considerations in the halfway around the world shipment, and I don't know what actually goes into making the synthetic clear asphalt binder as well, and it could be a lot more labor intensive, energy intensive to make this as well. So any if you want
Only
to go down the
anecdote-
road to
Yeah.
to GHG
Like,
calculations, you better do the whole works and not just at the point of application.
Main Road hired, his name is Sven, I can't remember the name of his company.
Sven sounds good.
But he is a greenhouse gas specialist, like he calculates greenhouse gas, he's a greenhouse gas accountant, and they had hired him to do the greenhouse gas accounting on this project. But because they ran into some,
their belief and his belief is that there are greenhouse gas savings. Like he has no doubt about that. The problem is that they couldn't calculate it properly because they really didn't know what they were going to be dealing with. So, for example, when they got the material from Europe, they didn't realize they would have to add heat to it. So they didn't have a manner to measure that and things like that. So that was the part of the issue with their greenhouse gas reduction calculations.
And he calculated the transportation from Europe?
He would have included all of that in the calculation.
Manufacture of the product itself. Okay, good.
It's a pretty comprehensive.
Thank you very
accounting
much.
that he does.
Okay, good.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. That's great. My initial thoughts on it really come down to cost. Under current, really needs a thorough cost-benefit analysis. Obviously, there's some nice stuff on the reflection, the noise, great. But in our current budgets, I would see that we'd be repaving roughly 15% less road. And I don't hear residents screaming for us to pave less. So the grand scheme of things, short of having that life cycle analysis to see that there's going to be some financial benefit, we would see some significant increase in the cost to pave sections of road. So I look forward to the final report when we look at the life cycle analysis as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. And you kept engineering intact in terms of interesting presentations.
One more quick question.
Mayor, sir.
Is there a consortium of municipalities? Do you guys get together municipality by municipality, and is there a possibility of actually trying to get critical mass to allow a supplier to source locally with some kind of a...
Yeah, we did a presentation at the Public Works Association of British Columbia in September, and there was a lot of interest. Our presentation was probably the best attended out of them. There was a lot of interest in it, and a lot of people came up to us afterwards and said that they would like to have an opportunity to come and see it and things like that. Well, I don't think we've had too many follow-ups yet, but like Burnaby, I know, wants to come and see it and see what we've done. So we'll set that up with them to do something.
That's great. This was a spellbinding presentation, and I'm sure the children in the audience will be able to attest to that.
I was. They were paying attention.
I saw them.
They
I
were.
saw them.
They were. Thank you very much. Madam Chair. Or Madam. You got promoted. What the heck?
Hey, I'm into it.
Or demoted.
Item 2 is the minutes of the council and committee meeting held on Monday, November 23rd.
Move the minutes.
Second.
Moved by Mayor Stewart, second by Councillor Asmundson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimous.
Item 3 is a delegation. I'd like to invite Mr. Joe Zuccolo to please come forward. Mr. Zuccolo will be discussing game-ready fitness and a change to the existing building use at 914 Sherwood Avenue.
Mr. Zuccolo.
Good afternoon.
Please come on up and have a seat, sir.
And please don't address me. Councillor Marsden is the chair of this meeting, so... But welcome.
My name is Joe Zuccolo. I'm the owner and proprietor.
Have a seat now with the microphones will pick you up completely.
Informal.
You can't think when I'm sitting.
Sorry.
You make a perfect counselor then.
I didn't say that either. My name is Joe Zuccolo. I'm the owner and proprietor of the building in question at 914 Sherwood Avenue. I'd just like to introduce the players in this thing. Tommy Sagna, who is the director of safety and training at Metro Safety and Training, and they presently lease the premises from me. And then we have Dino Jeremiah. Hope I pronounced that right this time. He's the technical director of Football BC and of Game Ready Fitness. And Will Loftus is also a director and the operator at the Surrey branch of Game Ready Fitness. And then they've got some supporters back here. We've got a BC Lion, Casey Chid.
Oh, Casey.
And we've got mothers here, Becky Severy. These are all supporters. And then we got some children, Jaden, children, James and Brianna. We got the whole family here. We're here today to request an amendment to the present land use at 914 Sherwood Avenue, Coquitlam. And it's presently occupied, like I said, by Metro Safety Training. And we'd like to, Metro would like to sublet the warehouse part of the building to Game Ready Fitness, which is basically a youth development program for young athletes and Olympians. So we'll pass this on to Dino,
Yeah.
and he'll basically do the presentation.
Awesome. Thanks very much for your time. We represent, it's actually Life Ready Foundation that houses the facility. We have current facilities in North Vancouver and in Cloverdale operating, in which we offer youth, children and youth development programs. The three pillars of the foundation are Fit for Life, Learn for Life, Lead for Life. So all our programs stem from those pillars. There's a huge component in the facility for physical activity, everything from young kids, 6 years old, all the way up to 18 and plus, and developing fundamental movement skills and physical literacy in the young kids, developing strength and power for some of the older kids that are looking to go on to Olympic dreams and professional dreams, university scholarships. The model is fairly simple. We just want to get the kids engaged. The programs are paid for by parents and users, and we, with the foundation, also look for partners to develop and erase barriers for all children and youth so that they can take advantage of these programs. These programs are high quality programs, so the facility is high quality, top-notch facility, equipment, turf field, computers, classrooms for the kids, and who's their coaches? Professional athletes like Casey that give back to the community. We're able to pay those athletes. A lot of these athletes are local, obviously Surrey and North Van, Casey being local here in Coquitlam. And they get to share their experiences with these young kids, their experiences of competing internationally, nationally, in their respective sports. The impact on the kids is amazing, and we'd urge you to come out and see one of our programs, and really a picture speaks 1,000 words. One of the areas that we've been able to develop a little bit further is our youth at risk programs. We have an initial partnership that we're working with the school district in Coquitlam. We are developing, we are offering out-of-school programs in our outreach programs to after school, both starting this January at Minnetonka Middle and at Harborview Elementary. The programs in the facility run all day long and during the day. The youth at risk programs partner with school boards and other alternate programs. For example, in Coquitlam, Goal or Cabby would be partners, and we would be able to offer, like we have in other districts, PE credits, leadership credits for the kids taking part in those programs. The youth at risk, and I was unfortunately made aware of that this morning. My car got broken into last night. I called the RCMP and was talking to the woman about the car being broken into, and she said they have never seen as many break-ins in the last couple of months as there is right now in Coquitlam. That it is reaching epidemic proportions. She also said that the police have identified that there is groups of youth that are participating in vandalism and petty theft, etc.
It's a problem all over the place, all municipalities. We're looking to make sure that we engage these youth and give them an opportunity to brush shoulders with some of the best and some of these great athletes, great mentors, great leaders. We did a program in Mission for youth at risk last year. It was a partnership with the Ministry of Children and Families, with Mission Secondary School, and then obviously us coming in with our athletes. After 4 sessions, we typically sit down with the youth. We put them through a very strenuous workout. Then we do some leadership skills, goal setting, talk about making right decisions, etc. After 4 sessions, we asked the group, there was a dozen of them there, to identify a leader that they would be wanting to live their lives like. Who in their life would they want to be like? What leaders do they see that make good decisions? Out of the 12 youth, 3 of them picked myself after only meeting me 4 times, and 3 of them picked the other coach, Sean Stewart, who's a former BC Lion, current actor and stuntman. It's not about us, it's about the youth and the opportunity that they get to brush shoulders with some positive mentors. It's not a Mission problem, it's a Coquitlam problem as well. And we're just looking to make sure we can engage these youth. I have my partner, Will Loftus, who has done an amazing job of building out in Surrey and some of the partnerships. So I just wanted him to talk a little bit about some of the partnerships that he has built in Surrey.
Okay, we normally limit to about 5 minutes, and we're approaching 7 right now. So if you can just very quickly, we've got a couple questions around the table.
Well, let's point of order before we go ahead. I want to know exactly why you were here today. Is it because you've been told by somebody in planning or permits that your intended use for the building is not allowed under current zoning?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think we need some background on that from maybe, as you're telling us a lot of information without the context, and I need to know the context. So
Okay.
can we, before you go ahead, can we hear from our general manager of planning and development?
The building.
Anything to share?
Does he?
Sure. Thank you. And good afternoon, gentlemen. We haven't met or talked face to face, but I understand you have been speaking with planning staff. There was an inquiry about the property, which, as the property owner said, has a current tenant in it. I believe next to the building there is a youth recreation business that operates there. That is it dance studio? Okay. Yeah, thank you. Which had been rezoned many, many years ago, and was then, when we did our industrial zone consolidation this last year, was grandfathered or grandparented in. So that's why that business exists in that location. I understand that when you came in and spoke with staff, they explained that under the M1 zone, it's our general industrial zone, those type of uses aren't permitted. There are a couple of options for you that we can talk about offline to, if you want to move ahead with that. Ultimately, in the end, it would lead to an application that would come back before council, either for a site-specific rezoning, temporary use permit. You know, there is a process that we need to follow through on.
Okay. Thank you. Councilman?
To the general manager, has there been negotiations or anything? Have you been talking to this group, or is it just a simple exchange of information at this stage? You've just told them 1 meeting or 2 meetings. Has there been a long list of meetings at which they've been seeking information?
Any other meetings? Just speaking to the people at the desk, they wouldn't. This is not considered an industrial application, right, and the zoning isn't right.
Okay, so your next move was to come directly to council, and
it's because it's not industrial related.
Right. Okay.
And we'd have to go through that application process. It takes anywhere from 6 to 8 months.
Yes.
So.
And we're trying to get this group into the building in January, early January.
So you're trying to short circuit the fast track it, but Yeah, well, okay. So, okay, we don't
There's already
deal with stuff like that.
To be
normally.
clear,
Anyway, so.
Mr. Chair, we normally don't vet the presentation.
Oh, I understand that, but I wanted to know where
How
they're
to talk
coming
to us
from.
about anything you want,
Yes.
world peace if you want.
Yeah.
We're just trying to set out the expectations a little bit because
That's right.
we have some issues to manage. It sounds to me like we really like the program, but we like seniors housing, and we're not going to put seniors housing in an industrial area as well, and that's the challenge before us is where it goes.
Thank you.
So,
Okay, that's all I needed to know was just to figure out where we're at here and what they're asking for. Thank you.
One of the big things was that there is potential partnerships with the dance school next door and with Metro Safety in developing a lot of training programs for these at-risk youth with Metro Safety, first aid, etc., safety and movement, etc. That is one of the things that we're always trying to prepare our youth for is obviously their job capabilities. So with a couple of those businesses operating there, we just saw that there was obviously a cooperative opportunity.
The building was built in 24 years ago, and I occupied one half of the building. The building's split in two. It's like a duplex, side by side, or identical, an east wing and a west wing. And the first tenant that I got was a dance school, and of course we had a zoning problem there, bringing in a dance school into thing, and we had to go to council and get approval to bring in a dance school in an industrial zoning area. And at that time, Zuccolo was in, and everybody was asking questions and such and debating the issue. And Lou stood up and said, well, you know, this whole area is basically residential, still is today, and there's industrial, and also there's retail, and the area's going to go retail. And that dance school is still there today, 24 years later. And then we get another school in the other building, Metro, and now Metro wants to amalgamate with this group because they're a made-in-heaven group. They're a perfect match to introduce safety in the schools and in sports, all sports. And they're going to attempt to come up with a program to amalgamate the two and go to the schools and go to the football groups and the soccer groups, etc., and bring training into it. The dance school is actually setting up an arrangement with Metro to train the children in safety. And the same is happening here with this group.
We've got some questions around the table, so I'm just going to go around to the councillors to ask the questions and get some opportunity there. So, Mayor Stewart, were you?
Yeah. So, and that's the challenge. Is that I know there's some existing uses. We're trying as much as possible to put industrial uses with industrial uses, so forklifts don't back up over things that are not supposed to be there, and recreation uses with recreation uses and retail uses with retail uses. And it's always challenging when we inherit a dance school in an industrial area, for example. And so, but I'm not certain how we can proceed here. I do want staff's input, and I thank you very much for demonstrating your project. It sounds to me like this is an absolutely wonderful program, and I absolutely support it. The question only on land use is this the right land use for this particular location? And that will have to come through a process that comes through staff, because we don't make land use decisions here without the staff's input and without a proper application. Obviously, there has to be an application for us to approve. But I thank you very much for coming in and for showing us what I think is a great program.
Okay. Councillor Asmussen.
Are you operating at this location already?
No.
No.
We offer outreach programs, so we are offering programs in Coquitlam, but we partner with schools, recreation centers to offer the programs.
What's your whole program? Is this outreach, youth outreach, your whole program, or is it a split between youth outreach and private specialized training? Is there a split between your operation and what you do?
The goal of it is to offer quality programs, and for those quality programs that we work with partnerships with our own foundation and others to ensure that we erase barriers so that all kids can have that access.
Okay, so it's not running part of elite programs and then also running at youth at-risk programs.
You see, what happens is these kids, what we try and do is in City of Surrey, what we do with our models, we work with the RAP program, RCMP Youth Diversion Program.
Yeah.
We also have a teacher from the Stepping Up program. They have a space in there where they teach these high-level at-risk youth that have made some poor decisions. But at the end of the day, the whole goal is always transitioning youth to be able to have a consistent place. So the facilities and the centers that we put in these communities have provided that consistent placement. So summer school, summer's out, all these schools still come, all these youth still come to programs. They have the opportunity to, right? Christmas holidays, summer, spring break, the whole nine. The centers create that consistency. And so when you're talking with the programs, it's one of those things where every youth has a starting point, but we all have a final goal of integrating with regular society and being a productive member of society. So the goal is transitioning every youth, even from the most far at-risk youth, getting that youth consistently worked with so we can build his confidence, he or she, so that they feel able and want to engage into more. And therefore then we have high-end programs. We have over 50 youth that are university scholarships all across North America. We have one youth that plays the NFL. We have 3 youth on the BC Lions, another youth on the Montreal Alouettes. So the goal is to get these youth, they're kids. They've made wrong decisions, right? And get them around other youth that are driven, goal-oriented, that are focused. And so far the formula has worked very, very well. You can talk to Safe Schools, Rob Ray, in the City of Surrey, and the ministry, and we do youth probations. All these youth are referred. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it's a good program.
No, but
I think nobody's debating the program here. I think it's a good program. Just trying to get some extra clarity on the details. But I do think, as Councillor Stewart has been said before, is that you have to go through staff with an application, and if the staff turns it down, then you can appeal to council for a variance or whatever, but you're going to have to go through that. The other issue is that, it's industrial use land. We have a limited amount of industrial use land. If we turn it over to all non-industrial, we're not going to be achieving our other goals. So that's where we're at here. So we need something from staff. We won't be given. I can't give you an answer today. I don't at all.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Esmond. Councillor Reid.
Love the program. Absolutely love it. I don't know that this is the right location for it because of the industrial zoning. But my question is, are you 7 days a week? Do you operate?
Mm-hmm. We have programs every day.
Every day? And is it like 9 to 9 or something like that?
We run in the programs, starts as early as 9 o'clock in the morning, all the way till pretty much 9, 10 o'clock at night.
Okay.
The goal is, with the centers, is having the ability for youth to have that consistent place.
Okay, and how much space do you need?
We use 4,400 square foot at both locations right now.
How many?
4,400 square feet at both locations right now.
Thank you.
And we, in the centers, are divided as, we have the field turf area, the strength training area, we have a classroom that's outfitted with computers, which are all free.
But could be on 2 floors?
We definitely have 2 tiers in both the centers. With the computers, we have free tutors for every youth that comes in the program. There's a certified teacher, one of our community teachers that's there. We also provide free haircuts for the kids. So we have a group that comes in, styles the little girls' hairs, and do their nails. Like, these are all youth that are in care. They're not in care by choice.
They're not zoned for hairstyle.
No. It's just seeing barriers and erasing, right? So
yeah, well, we're trying to. Okay. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Cheers.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Councillor Hodge.
Okay, great program. So thank you for explaining that. But my questions are now going to be around land use, and I think this is where this is going to. But it's really the discussion is going to come down to. Have you looked at other places in the city? I'm just wondering why you picked this location.
Honestly, the reason why this location was because one of the kids in our program that we're running, we run them at fields and schools, as I mentioned. His father is operating in that building. He said, "Hey, I've got some space in the back of the building. Would you guys be interested?" He knew he had been at our Cloverdale facility. He had been at our North Van facility. And when we went and looked at it, we said, "Wow, this is perfect."
Have you looked at other spots in Coquitlam? Or?
We have not.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, and I guess then the general manager outlined the process. So at this point, if you wanted to proceed with here to the general manager, I guess they would then make a formal application. They could request a land use change or a temporary land use permit. There is a process, albeit it will take a bit of while, but there is an actual process that it's not a flat out right no at the counter. They can proceed with an application or whatever. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that's correct. Yeah, there's a number of possible avenues here. This may sound Greek to the delegation, but council is aware we use temporary use permits on occasion on specific sites. There can be a site-specific zoning bylaw amendment which would just apply to that property. Or there could be something more significant, which would be to apply to change the official community plan and the zoning to the B1 business enterprise zone. So that'd be like parachuting a new zoning onto that property. That'd probably be the most challenging. So there's a couple of different options that you guys can consider. And again, we'd be pleased to meet with you and lay out those options. Staff would look at it. We would do up a report, and it'd ultimately have to come forward to council. Because each of those require a council decision.
That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Discussing the application with the clerk, yes, I asked about, what's the timetable for this? And what's the likelihood of they accepting our application? He said 0. So there's no chance it's going to be changed, and there's no chance you're going to get in there because of the land use issues that everybody's concerned with. They want to maintain it industrial. So the building's not going to change.
Yeah.
We're not changing the building. That's going to change. There's already 2 schools there. We're just adding a 3rd school.
Okay.
If I could, Mr. Chair, that's not what was reported to me.
Okay.
I'm sorry if someone left you with that impression, but why don't you come to speak with us and we'll have a fuller discussion.
Are you saying there's some chance if we make the application, like even that much?
I think
what
we
are we going to waste our time?
I've got one more speaker to go, but I think where we're looking like we're going to land here is a strong suggestion that you meet with Mr. McIntyre, one of his designates, and have a more fulsome discussion to determine exactly what the options that could be available. So perhaps not that firm no that you feel you received, but look at the options that may be available. And then it would come back to council should something happen. But I've got one more speaker, and Councillor O'Neill, before we.
And I really, that's actually a similar question to what Councillor Asmussen was asking. I'm having a little trouble understanding what Game Ready Fitness is and what your foundation is. So, in the questions that Councillor Asmussen asked, you answered about the foundation, what the foundation does. But Game Ready Fitness is I would think, is a for-profit elite athlete training business. Sure. Is that correct?
100%. Yeah.
And you're a paid employee, and you're a paid employee of that. And as part of the work you do under Game Ready Fitness, you maybe hire some of the people you're training, get some grants from people and some support, and then operate this charitable work. Now, you've come to us talking totally about the charitable work, but you're a for-profit business as well, correct?
Game Ready. The Life Ready Foundation is partnered with Game Ready Fitness to offer that service and that high quality of service.
I want to just get this clear here because you've talked to us all about the good deeds you're doing, and it sounds fantastic. Yeah. Really wonderful. But you're a for-profit business coming to this location. That's an industrial zone location. That's Game Ready Fitness. You charge by the hour, by the workout, by the
monthly program cost.
Monthly program.
Yeah, and we've been running programs since 2009.
Do you take some of your own profits and put them towards this charitable work with youth as well, or is
100%. We take on youth. I mean, we've never turned away a single.
100% of your profits?
No, definitely not 100%. No.
Said 100%.
Definitely no.
Okay.
Yeah. The thing is, what we do is we never turned away a youth, right? We've never turned away a youth since 2009 we first started it. I was coaching at Simon Fraser, and there was a big gap, a barrier. Okay. But this whole thing is what when I was growing up, I wish I had. Right? Is like, I'm going to the rec center and I don't have $2 in my pocket to get in the gym, but I know I got a dream and a goal, trying to get a university scholarship and all this. And my whole walk up to the gym is hoping that lady's not at the desk. And if she's at the desk, I can't get in. But if she's not there, you understand what I'm saying? So what it is we alleviate all the barriers for these kids, right? Also what's with it and what the foundation provides and the simple structure provides all the extra things that come with it, right? Like the tutor.
So how much of your work that goes on in this building would be the charitable foundation oriented helping kids, And how much is training elite athletes?
Training elite
So
athletes
training
is 5
is
hours,
athletes.
5 hours a week.
So-
is what it is. It's basically 5 to 10 hours a week, right? We have 3 youth development programs.
So percentage-wise, what goes on in this building, right, that you foresee going on in this building will be how much your business and then how much will be for the kids, this charitable work?
5 to 9 o'clock.
Just give me percentage.
Well, that's what I say.
What's
So
your percentage of what goes on?
30%.
30% is the for-profit work?
100%.
70%? Okay, great. It's good. This is really important information
No,
for us to
it's
know.
definitely. Well, it's all we have all the information for you. So like
Wow.
to see the and no, I mean another time we could
I felt
definitely.
I had to drag it out of you. You
No,
just didn't
for
want
sure.
to talk about
Yeah.
your business part.
Okay,
You have to be right up front, okay?
Well, that's why I say we have the elite development program,
Yeah,
which
but-
these kids come. And my fault. My apologies if that's.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. In the interest of time, we've merged a lot of it together. I thank you guys. Some great looking programs in there, Mr. Zuccolo. I'm going to encourage you to get Mr. McIntyre's card, and he can perhaps set you up with a designate to ensure that we have that discussion on how we can best move forward. The programs, clearly what you've heard around the table, is something that this council is certainly interested in having in our city and supporting our kids and keeping them active. It fits to one of the strategic priorities that we have as a city. So thank you for the work you're doing elsewhere, and I'm hopeful that we can come to a solution that's going to work where you can open your doors here in Coquitlam.
Awesome.
Okay? Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time. Thanks.
Madam Clerk.
We're going to move on to staff reports. Item 4 is a report entitled 2015 Corporate Climate Change Action Goals Update. The report's before you for information.
We have the report before us, moved by Councillor Reid, second by Councillor O'Neill. Discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 5.
Item 5 is a report concerning the review of drainage system design criteria. The report's before you for information.
So moved, but a question.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, second by Councillor Reid. Councillor Reid.
Quick question on this item, on the, I want to talk about the rainfall frequency. Reading through this, I assume that all the stats that we're having for Burke Mountain are up to date and we really know what we're doing up there, because I don't want some of those folks sliding down to Poco.
Minister Diozzetti. Welcome.
Sorry, taxpayer maintenance program.
Through the chair,
Exactly.
yes. With the rain gauge installed, we have the capability of having up-to-the-hour information on the rainfall events. And also, by collecting this data, we have a great opportunity to actually process it and compare it with the currently bylaw-regulated rainfall intensity and duration curves. So, to be precise, yes, we have the information what's necessary, and it is up to
You're
date.
confident about it.
I am confident in that, but I'm not that confident that the weather will cooperate fully.
It won't, so I can tell you, but we at least have a good handle on what we're doing.
I do believe that what we are doing is the right thing to do, and it will provide us longer-term downstream benefits
Very
for us.
much. Okay.
Councillor Hodge.
Okay, having seen the rains on Brook Mountain firsthand, I have a couple of questions. We're talking about 5-year frequency. We used to talk about the 100-year storm, except that they seem to be occurring about every 10 years now. So I'm just wondering,
10 weeks.
every 10 weeks, thinking back to the big one we had in August of 2013. Just wondering, it says here that we would use the current Metro Vancouver's rain gauge design and review it in 3 to 5 years. But we're going to put a lot of infrastructure in during the next 3 to 5 years. Are we going to then discover after the infrastructure is in the ground that the new data supports that it should have actually been bigger?
My understanding is, and I believe it's correct, that the conditions don't change that fast. We have been observing greater intensity rainfalls at more frequency than in the past. But also, you could see from the information noted in the report that our rainfall intensity duration curves set a somewhat higher standard for lower reoccurrence rainfall events in the city of Coquitlam than the Metro Vancouver curves would suggest. So that gives me a degree of confidence. The second thing is that also we noted in our report that when we are designing a storm sewer system, it's just like with parking. You cannot have for a single-family residential lot 1.3 parking stalls or 1.5. The pipes come in certain sizes, and depending on the calculations, you have to step up, say from 250 to 375 millimeter diameter pipe, and the capacity of that pipe is significantly larger than what the rainfall curves would indicate as necessary. One other thing I'd like to mention that we have to keep in mind that the downstream portions of the storm sewer system for the most has already been established. Therefore, the tools we have to deal with the changes in the rainfall intensity is we can deal with the upper part, the first parts of the storm sewer system on the short term, and over time, if and when required, when we replace the lower parts of the storm sewer system, then we can upsize if needed. The other thing is clearly source control. And when I say source control, I mean how to prolong the time when the rain actually gets into the enclosed system. And I can report, as probably you know very well, that the city of Coquitlam has made really, really good advancement in this field. And we have a number of cases where we are testing and implementing a variety of tools that would lengthen the time, or the field absorption would be greater so that less strain would be on the enclosed system.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Asmussen.
Thank you for a report. I agree that we got to get the rain gauge information updated through Metro Vancouver to set those targets. I guess a couple of questions here is, and correct me if I'm wrong, I've heard the question about Burke Mountain and the concerns, but I would say, knowing the watershed management that's gone into Burke Mountain over the older areas of Coquitlam with the storm diversion pipe, water quality ponds, the boulevard infiltration and all that's going in there, wouldn't you say that Burke Mountain, out of the whole city compared to, let's say, Westwood Plateau or Harbour Chines, the older area, has a better water management plan than most areas of the city to deal with what's in place?
Yes, with some cautions. I think when we are dealing with the mountain side, be it Burke Mountain, it's special enough on its own. So if I was to compare with Westwood Plateau, yes, the Burke Mountain system is better. I believe it's going to be good. But if I was to compare it with Southwest Coquitlam, that's a very different scenario.
Well, I guess I'm just saying that we put a watershed management plan up there. It's one of the first ones up there to deal with water, especially with the water quality ponds, limiting the runoff and erosion and flash flooding into creeks and watercourses that we don't have, and we're going to bring that into other areas of the system.
Absolutely.
So I think Burke Mountain has a lot going for it in water controls. My real point of my question is outfalls. When I look at Westwood Plateau's outfall into the Coquitlam River and the other ones, those are where my real concerns at the end of the line. Where are we looking at our outfalls with the volumes they're putting out, the height of the outfalls compared to rising flows, whether it's going to be here, Southwest Coquitlam, is an outfall into Fraser River? Those are some of my concerns are. Have we looked at that information on the
We haven't specifically looked at our outfalls from this perspective. What we do is, aside from complaints-based follow-ups, we have an inspection program in place for our storm sewers, and that includes the outfalls. The primary reason for the outfalls is to look at if there is any erosion or any separation of the pipe, or if there is an outflow structure, whether it has moved or not. But in our area, there are some areas where it's a concern, but in many areas it may not be a concern. But I'll be more than happy to put it on our list and follow up on that.
Because I know when we did Burke Mountain, we have the outfall into the mobile slough out in the Pitt River out there, not just, so that should be able to properly, we don't have to worry about that outfall, taking all that 100-year storm diversion and everything away from there, controlling that. But I do worry about the West Valley Plateau, the other ones in other areas. That's where I think we have some concerns about right sizing those and making sure that the level of them are high enough.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
A little off topic, but I just wanted to let the staff that were here to present about number 4. In the switchover, we actually already went through it. So we're done. But on this report, we don't have I was very surprised to hear this a month or two ago. We don't have an impermeable surface regulation for single-family housing. Is that correct?
I think
we have guidelines, but we have no.
Mr. McIntyre would help me.
So I can pave my whole yard, front and back, no problem at all.
Mr. McIntyre.
It's correct that we don't specify a percentage of impervious versus permeable. However, with particularly again in northeast Coquitlam and with the single-family zones, there was a number of measures that were taken. I think Councillor Osmondson was alluding to a few moments ago at the construction and landscaping stage. That, for example, calls for an amount of topsoil to be placed to help in ground recharge, grading on the lots to the extent possible to divert water into areas that will soak into the soil. There's a multitude of some pretty incredible piping and diversion works once you get out into the public roadway in those areas that looked at achieving those objectives without specifying a percent impervious and permeable.
But if I lived in Burke Mountain and I wanted to pave the whole yard, I could.
You theoretically could, but you'd also want to do that with some real care and attention because you're then creating a hard surface. You'd have to handle the water coming off that, both onto your property, onto neighboring private properties, and onto the road too. So there is an obligation with the property owner if you start impacting and changing drainage and drainage flows, there can be consequences.
And is that common with cities not to have any kind of regulations about impermeable surfaces?
Some municipalities have ventured into that. I think most have not. There are certain, again, the measures I think we put in place for the single family. When you get around to multifamily residential construction, there's much more attention paid to that through the development permit and site planning and landscaping.
And so we don't do it just because it's very detailed and technical, and there's all kinds of just increase our workload, or we just don't think it's important to regulate that.
When this matter came up some years back, there was a lot of discussion and debate about it, and the approach that was settled on at the time was to include those measures I've described. And so to safely deal with water on site to the extent possible, obviously consistent with the building and plumbing code and good engineering practices. And then as you move off site, there is a number of measures within the boulevard, swales, downstream to, again, achieve the recharge of water to the ground.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. So we have the report before us for receipts, correct, or for information. We moved by Councillor Asmussen, second by Councillor Reid, correct? For discussion, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 6 is a report concerning the draft 2016 to 2019 strategic plan. We have introductory comments by the Deputy City Manager and a presentation by the Manager of Corporate Planning. The report's before you for information.
Mr. Dumont, Ms. Caulfield, welcome.
Thank you very much. This is the third update to our 15-year strategic plan that was produced in 2006. The draft is before council today for council or for committee's feedback. Nikki has a brief presentation that speaks to how we got to today and what some of the key changes are for this proposed version of the plan. And I would suggest that we have Nikki quickly run through her presentation, and then we will be pleased to entertain questions.
Yeah, I know you've been practicing all morning, so take it away.
I was busted. Thank you for having me here before you today. As you know, you have a copy of the draft 2016 through 2019 strategic plan. This is the draft copy with the final copy for adoption after it's received for information today, coming forward in early 2016. This is something I've been working on actually since early this spring, and it's work that I'm very proud of. I think the piece that I'm most proud of is actually how many people in our community from across a few different areas provided input into this process, and overwhelmingly we're thrilled to be a part of Coquitlam in terms of the strengths we have. As John mentioned, this is a 15-year vision that was established in 2006, moving us forward to 2021. It established our vision, our mission, and our strategic goals. And of course, because it is a 15-year vision, it's important every 3 to 4 years to take stock of what it is we hope to achieve, how we plan to move forward with that, and how we plan to measure success. And this update is really a part of that process. In terms of overall engagement for this process, as I mentioned, it started early this spring. So there was a statistically valid Ipsos Reid survey done across demographics and neighbourhoods in our community, where areas of top of mind or pieces that our community was interested and concerned about. There was also an employee survey of over 100 employees across departments and at varying levels in the organisation. Stakeholder meetings with youth and seniors, dialogue sessions with many of the council and committees that I know many of you here were a part of, and also a session with council in October as part of the Strategic Priorities Standing Committee. So what's actually in our plan? So it has our vision, but it's also established of 5 strategic goals, which are, as you see, strengthening neighbourhoods, expanding local jobs and local prosperity, increasing active participation and creativity, enhancing sustainability of city services and of infrastructure. In terms of our strategic goals and how do we actually bring those strategies into action, so you'll see our strategic plan has 5 strategic goals, which are broad statements about what we hope to achieve. You'll notice in the plan that you have before you today, one of the major transitions in the plan was actually the use of language. And rather than focusing on strategic goals and directions, which are of course the theory and philosophy behind the plan, one of the things I overwhelmingly heard as part of the consultation was that people wanted to know what that meant. And so what it really does is laid out what we hope to achieve, how we plan to achieve it, how we're going to measure success. And then the business plan that's before you later this evening is about what tangible actions we're actually going to take to move forward to achieve those goals. So in terms of the adjustment made, as I mentioned, the language of the plan was simplified. There was updated to ensure the strategic directions complemented the relevant plans and strategies that have been introduced since 2012. There was included information and considerations from the community consultations and also council input, and also a modern look and feel to the document to sort of bring it forward. We looked at the alignment with other plans, so ensuring each of the strategic goals and the directions and what we laid out we hope to achieve aligns with our official community plan, our strategic transportation plan, our Parks and Rec master plans, and also other corporate plans such as the economic action strategy, the financial plan, the tourism strategy, and the multicultural plan. You'll notice there's a new page in the plan as well about how we make our strategic plan come alive. That was one of the interesting parts of my consultation. People said, I get it, I'm on the page, but how do we make it real? And that was one of the things that I wanted to lay out a little bit clearer in the plan, was some of the ways that we use this plan from a governance perspective to move forward and really bring the plan to life and to create positive change in our community. So as we move forward, this review is a part of making sure that we look at what we set out to achieve, how we plan to achieve it, how we measure success, and that it's relevant with our current direction moving forward. Coquitlam is a community of great change, and it's something that we need to continuously look at, monitor, and ensure that it's aligned with our vision moving forward. I'm here if Council has any questions or information or input that they'd like to provide.
Councillor O'Neill.
Yeah, thank you. Really good stuff, and I think the focus on where the rubber meets the road is really good. Kind of links us to the first presentation we had more than an hour ago. So that's really good, and the clearer language and the clear statement. Now, that's all really good stuff. I'm wondering, did you, as part of this updating exercise, question, or did you think it was part of the mandate to perhaps look at the very big question, right at the very top. What's our vision? What's our mission? And what are our corporate values? Because those have stayed exactly the same, and you've assumed that they should stay the same. But I don't know if you've ever come to council to ask us if we wanted them to stay the same, if we wanted to refine those a bit. As a different council in 2006, 9 years later now, maybe we have a different vision for the city, a more refined vision, or a less, I'll say, redundant vision of aiming for an urban city. The word urban meaning city-like. So a city-like city is part of our vision right now. That would make sense if we wanted an urban community, perhaps, but an urban city doesn't make sense. And that's in our number one vision statement, right? So, just from a purely editorial point of view, I would love to dig into some of this wording to find better wording. But then from another point of view is, well, no, I have maybe some different thoughts that I'd like to talk with some of my council colleagues about what we should be envisioning for the future for the city. Maybe it's slightly different. Maybe our mission should be looked at in a different way. So can you answer that about in terms
Perhaps
of
Mr. Dumont or Mr. Steblin might want to,
I don't know,
start there? Your thoughts?
Well, I can speak to it very generally. That I think Nikki will want to say something. I think when the plan was done, it was meant to be a 15-year plan with a check-in every 3 years. So I don't think it envisioned that it would be a comprehensive redo that we would do every 3 or 4 years. So I guess that would be my general comment. And in terms of this plan, what we envisioned was to be doing one more update, 2016 to 19, and then we would start looking at a new plan in 2020, and that would be a major update that then we would hopefully roll out in 2021. So that was what we envisioned as staff. We didn't see this as being a complete rewrite of the plan this time around, that would happen in 4 years. I don't know if you have anything to add, Nikki.
I think John spoke to it very well. But yes, this plan would be expiring in 2019, and our recommendation would be that at the expiration of this plan, we delve into exactly the process you're speaking of, Councillor O'Neill.
So if one of my council colleagues had an idea that, a great new vision for the city that should be maybe something that we all focus on, maybe we want to be the city with the best transit in the world or something like that, and that we start devoting some time and effort and municipal resources to that, we wouldn't really be able to do it unless we said, no, let's stop, let's have a whole new strategic vision. Or
if I could, this is an ongoing process, and at any time, if council feels they want a different vision, we can start thinking about that. As John said, this was meant to be a certain time frame. When I got here, they told me the vision, the mission, and those kind of things. I looked at it and said, oh, that's motherhood. That's pretty good. Did it bother me? No, it didn't bother me. Whatever. I focused more on the values. And whenever I talked to the staff, I really related to the values. And I thought the values are pretty good. If you as a council want to change any of those things, we can start having that kind of dialogue leading up to the major redo years from now. That's all I can say. I really focus, when I sort of see long-ranging documents, if I see something not in sync with what I believe the current council philosophy is, I dig in and say, hey, we have to align that, we have to change that. I did not feel that this was in conflict with what we were getting in an ongoing way from you. Could you refine it? Sure. You could always refine it.
So my point was that I agree that I don't think this is in conflict with what we're doing and the good work the staff is doing, the important work the council has embarked on. But you said the word motherhood. The vision is a real motherhood statement. And I think it should be and could be more focused. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Reid.
Pete pretty well covered what I wanted to say, so.
Excellent. I have myself down next, just very quickly. I think this is good work. I think, as it said, the strategic plan was intended for a longer period. I think having those deeper discussions about vision and moving forward, I think, is important. We've talked a little bit about taking some of those discussions offline and having them. I think it really important that what you just said there, Mr. Stavlin, was, did it bother me? No. The point is, it didn't inspire either. I think, and as we move forward in the next iteration, I would really challenge us around the table to look at it and say, okay, what are we going to do that truly is inspirational, visionary, and let's make sure that we start to take it in that direction in our term, and lay the groundwork for future councils to truly build a city that we can look back on and be proud of. So thank you very much for the presentation. I very much like the direction you're taking it. Easier to read. I think certainly something that residents will certainly be able to connect with much better. So thank you.
Love the bright houses.
Move receipt. Councillor O'Neill. Second, Councillor Towner. Favor. Opposed. Carried.
We'll move on to other business. The first other business item concerns traffic patterns and possible access improvements on Linton Street at Como Lake Avenue and was raised by Councillor Zuccolo.
Councillor Zuccolo.
Thank you. So this is just about the historical challenges we have with the Como Lake Village parking lot and some of the movement around there. And I noticed that there will be a new fast food restaurant coming into there right away, which will increase the amount of traffic that's flowing through there in and out.
I hope so.
And I do remember that we were looking into this back in the summer, and I'm just wondering if there's an update for council on any of the thoughts about just it's really about the access to the parking lot and the parking lot at Como.
Mr. Diozeki.
Thank you. Through the chair, yes, indeed, during the summer we have done quite a bit of work in and around this particular development site. We actually provided a multi-page report to the management of this particular shopping center with several recommendations we felt would ease the currently existing situation and would provide a safer and better access to all users of this shopping center. We also had on-site meetings with management, so they have a full understanding of what we were recommending and why. And I have some good news to report. As early as within the last 10 days or so, we received an email from the shopping center manager who informed us that as per our recommendations at the middle of August, he submitted some budget requests to the owners of the shopping center, and that budget request has been approved for next year, for 2016. So we are looking forward to continue working with the shopping center management and make the recommended changes as per our report to them. You have actually a copy of the report. We distributed it in August.
Was there timing in that budget? Did they give any kind of a time frame?
No. My assumption is that as the budget was approved for 2016, and we offered them that we will guide them through the approval process, I anticipate that hopefully during the first trimester of the year, it's going to get done.
Okay. I just had a question about the empty site off of Montrose. It's fenced in right now. Is there any opportunity to have a two-way in and out there if we moved the fence at some point? Is there any opportunity for that? I'm just concerned that when the fast food restaurant comes in, more people are going to be coming from that end.
You mean northbound off of Montrose?
Mm-hmm. Even
or
so, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure if we have looked at to date that possibility, but what I do know is that we analyzed the on-site circulation along with the currently existing traffic signals on Como Lake Avenue, and we are working towards a possible solution that would, on one hand, improve the on-site circulation, and on the other hand, would perhaps improve the vehicular and pedestrian safety along Como Avenue.
Is there any chance for us to, I think it's opening imminently, and we're going to go through the Christmas rush. Is there any opportunity for the cities to go back after the Christmas rush with this new tenant and just take a look at the traffic flows again? Or do you think that the mall is doing that with a new tenant?
If there's an application in, then the application has to go through the channels, and all the requirements would be summarized and given to the applicants, perhaps as conditions of the development. I'm not sure if Mr. Mooney has made it here. Yes. Do you have any update on this?
Through the chair, I think the driveway you're referring to is right now designated as an inbound off of Montrose into the shopping center, and my recollection is that that driveway is wholly contained within the old gas station site. Yeah. And so even having a new tenant in the mall may not enable them or us to require that driveway to be widened to provide two-way traffic flow. So it is a constraint, it's a limitation to get out to Montrose right now, and as far as I know, there hasn't been any formal submissions on the old service station site that I'm aware of.
It just seems a shame. I mean, it's sitting empty and it's just caged off, and it could be potentially improving access. So I'm looking forward to, you said there's some changes coming. I think they're widening some exits and entrances. So correct. I'm just, perhaps there's a possibility to go back and see how far we've come along, because I think there's a lot of issues there coming in from Linton and Como Lake and even Montrose.
Good. That's it. Councilor Reid.
Well, I thought the gas station site is probably sitting there because it's got to go through all the environmental phases before they can do anything there.
That's right.
So I do not know why we can't make development on that site conditional upon providing another lane. It just doesn't make sense not to, or to widen the existing lane off Montrose. The other thing is, I don't know what the ratio is between large parking and small parking.
True, there's small parking.
But we're way out of whack somehow, because they've got a ton of small parking spots in there, and everybody's getting in big trucks, and nobody can. So I think we need to make it at least 50-50. I don't know what it is now, 70-30, something like that.
Mr. McIntyre.
Sure.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I don't know that number offhand, the percentage.
Sorry.
I will check. I'm busily scribbling some notes here. We will follow up.
Yeah.
I do recall the work that Joseph was describing. There was communication. There was a lot of an examination of that. So it's encouraging to hear that the shopping center is going to follow up on some of that. So I'd be very curious as to what they are going to do. I will check on the status of that site, and we will liaise with engineering on this matter.
I think that's where half the congestion comes from, is you get these big trucks in these tiny spots, and you can't see to back up, and it's a nightmare. So as far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't approve anything else on that site until the parking and the access and egress was fixed.
Okay. Excellent. Councillor Wilson.
My question was about the Montrose access, but then Craig was asking a question, so I don't know if you asked it.
Yeah, I did. Condition of building on the corner.
Well, but when the gas station was there, it used to be a two-way in and out.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the gas station was torn down, it seemed like the construction fence impeded kind of into the eastbound lane, and it became a one-way. And that would have been the mall's management decision, not a city decision. Is that correct? To change it from two-way to one-way?
Certainly wouldn't have been the city's decision. It may not have been the malls. It might have been the gas station themselves. If there was no formal cross-lot easement agreement, the gas station has the right to close the driveway, and they may have had to do some of the remediation. That's something that we should probably look at, but it's difficult to try and invoke a requirement on a third-party land if the development's not occurring on that land. So I'm sorry, definitely if the gas station were to redevelop, we would absolutely be looking for a two-way connection to Montrose. But if the development is occurring in the main part of the mall, it's difficult for us to put a requirement onto the gas station to provide something. It's not unlike the Poirier and Como Lake site that we dealt with a few months back, where there was an adjacent shopping grocery store next to the gas station. We couldn't really require them to make a cross-lot easement, although there's obviously very good benefits. You would think both parties would see the merits. So if that helps,
So it's not under the mall's control, but it's under the gas station property's owner's control.
It's currently full.
We could talk to the gas station. Could talk to the gas station property owner and ask, hey, can you move that fence over and we can have two-way access again? Like, is that realistic?
Surprise them when they come in for redevelopment.
I think it's something that could be asked. I'd be really curious as to why it moved in the first place. I suspect there was probably a reason for it. It's probably the remediation, whether that's been dealt with or not now, whether there's liabilities or cross-lot easements, rights and responsibilities.
I don't know enough about traffic flows, but when you leave that mall, you've got to go onto Como Lake and back onto Montrose, and it just seemed way more convenient. Now, maybe there's a good reason other than they needed the space to do remediation work, but now that that remediation is done, if it works for traffic flows, it seems to me it might be worthwhile to ask the gas station if we can make it a two-lane entrance again. I don't know. You get a lot of people off that Como Lake, that tiny little stretch of Como Lake, and there's a bus stop there. I mean, it's just a dumb thing to have to do. Thanks.
Mayor Stewart. We're still left. I remember the discussion we had before that I don't think, for example, someone's going to come in and ask for a building permit in most cases, not so much a development permit, but a building permit. We won't be able to hold that, the shopping, we won't be able to require them to make changes in their parking lot. And the other reality is I believe their parking lot fully conforms to our parking bylaw. So we would have to tell them, you conform to our bylaw, but we need you to do more than that or do something differently. And that, I think, would be I think we'd be hard pressed. My understanding was we'd be hard pressed to try to do that. Is there a way to solve these kinds of things going forward as well? I mean, ultimately, we're going to have to look at this parking lot to try to fix the world's worst strip mall parking lot. But looking forward, how do we make it so our bylaw covers it better so that for example, inbound lanes aren't loaded on both sides by parking spaces, which is one of the biggest challenges there.
Well, my understanding, and you're correct, that the current parking configuration meets our current bylaws. What we were looking to do was within the body of the bylaws to put in some language that was more subjective so that inherently somebody could look at it from a best practices. The problem with bylaws is you can set up percentage of those small car stalls and you can set up requirements in terms of access off of minor streets versus major streets, but there's so many different variables that I think you need a full assessment of that site at that location with those road configurations, existing or future, and then have somebody be able to accept it as being the best practices and well thought out, well laid out. I don't know that we can be so prescriptive in our bylaws to set all those criteria, but it's going to take an independent review of somebody at that time to do that assessment. I think we've looked at it. We made a number of suggestions that even the current owner has seen to their benefit. Accessibility and people's experience in the shopping centers do influence their decisions as to where they go and shop, and that affects their tenants' viability. And they did take us up on these recommendations, which included treating some of those end aisles a little bit better, widening the driveway, as well as enforcing or retaining somebody to do enforcement of the small car stalls. So I think there is a shared interest here post-development, but I think in terms of your specific question about development going forward is to look at our bylaw and to require a review of that design irrespective of the fact that it meets all of the standards. It's somewhat subjective, but I think it's very important that someone with training in that area look at them on a case-by-case basis and say, yes, that one will work at this location under the current and foreseeable future situations.
Well, your point is well taken. I think ultimately this is in the owner's best interest. Yogi Berra would have said nobody goes there anymore because it's too crowded, but I don't go there anymore. So,
Councillor Asmundson.
The late great Yogi Berra.
3 times a week.
Thank you. I guess, to me, the parking issues are bylaw. Is that being, I thought it was being updated. One of my biggest issues is the small car spots. I just don't think it works designating small car spots. I've been to various malls around. I raised this months ago, and I thought we were doing a review of our small parking spaces, because I'll go into malls and I'll see big trucks or big vehicles looking for spaces, and there is none. But you've got small cars parking in the big spaces, and then you got bigger vehicles parking in the small space because there's nowhere to park. And I think it becomes a way for places and malls that are designed to meet the bylaw by putting a whole bunch of little small spaces. Yeah, we got parking spaces. We now meet the bylaw, but it doesn't work with the vehicles and the traffic going in there. So I really think, and I know some people may, well, but sorry, Mr. Stewart, I know, but I'm just saying the reality is.
So far, I've been Councillor Stewart and Mr. Stewart. And those of us who drive small cars, it works fine.
We'll use respectful terms, though. So
but you're
carry on, Councillor Asmundson.
No. I would hope people would not interrupt, even at their own point of view. But I do think it's an issue. I do think it's an issue that is ongoing, that causes a lot of frustration, and it leads to problems in designs of parking lots. And I think the designating of all these small car spaces and how they're used creates a lot of conflicts. And you say these big vehicles, they're looking around, there's no space for them, so they go in the small spaces. It creates those conflicts. And I think we really need to review that and how it leads into our designs. Because we really need to look at our designs and our bylaw for parking for malls and different things like that, and how they work, but even how the stalls are laid out in the small parking spaces. I've been in so many, it just doesn't work. And it's a nice idea to say the small cars, we get a little spot, but they're not using them. In the last couple of days, I've been in places where there's been packed with parking. Small cars are parking in all the big spots, and the big cars are parking in the small spots. It's just ridiculous.
Excellent. Thank you. So, I think you've heard loud and clear that our rules have, although they've been followed, I think this is a case of form over function, and there's some real functional issues in that parking lot. I don't know if it's the worst in the world. I don't know if Guinness is going to come check it or not, but it certainly is one of the more challenging ones in our city. So happy to see and quite surprised to see that the owner is coming forth to make some changes. Obviously, they're hearing some things from the tenants. So in conjunction with that, I would very much be interested in, as Councillor Asmundson said, if we can encourage them to look at other solutions in conjunction with that work. I think Council would be very much interested in hearing that. We're in an area where small cars are nice. Large cars are more reality for a lot of people with their SUVs and bringing their kids around to sports and that. So we got to make sure we've got space for them.
Yeah.
So as we move forward with the discussion about the pending changes to that site, perhaps we can see what their thoughts are about site improvements for parking access. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Next item, OB2.
Yeah, the second other business item concerns dead park trees and was raised by Councillor Hodge.
Councillor Hodge.
So
found a sunny day.
Yeah, we found a sunny day. Unfortunately, those are not fall autumn colors. Those are dead cedar trees. This is at the north, just north of TC Northfield, the northeast or northwest corner of Town Centre Park. There's also some others in other parts of the park, and I'm assuming that this is a result of the drought that we had this summer. And I'm just wondering if we have done an inventory of how many trees we lost and how much of it's, what the plan is, because these aren't going to look any better in a year's time.
Yes, through
Mr. Elueva.
Through the chair, we are in the process of doing an inventory, still finalizing an inventory. It's actually been a very, very challenging year. Obviously, the drought was significant. The storms have been, we're still working on storm cleanup, actually, from the latest round. These ones in Town Centre North, are particularly susceptible. Obviously, the gravel base and drainage is an issue, and particularly with the year that we've had, we do think we're going to lose a number of these. The replanting of those is something we'll be looking at, but we're still in the process of doing an inspection and really coming back with a determination, particularly here, but also across our entire inventory. It has been a challenging year. We're also working on trying to really determine what the best way to replant trees, because when we do lose trees like this, we do replant them through our own inventory replacement. Really, it's how you do it in this kind of soil environment. Then that's something we'll be looking at, including, as we've mentioned, through the budget process, enough irrigation to make sure these survive, and then the appropriate species here. But Town Centre North is a challenge because of the soils. But more detailed inventory will be probably completed. But our staff are struggling to keep up with the interesting year we've had this year.
Well, thank you. And I note that certainly that we shut down the watering. We did on a couple of fields because they're sand-based. We got an exemption. My grass turned brown in August, and it was green again by September. So I think that what we're saying to residents is grass comes back, but trees don't. And this is certainly one of the things I know that Metro's going to be talking about in the future. Yes. They're looking at exemptions in certain areas. And I'm just thinking that's thousands and thousands of dollars of trees. In fact, each one of those trees, newest specimen trees, is probably about $400 or $500 tree. So there's a huge financial hit that we've taken, and I look forward to sort of getting that report. Yep. But recognizing that if we have the ability to increase irrigation in certain areas, grass comes back, trees don't.
Correct, and Kathleen Reinheimer, as well as Lanny England, our managers in that area, are working hard, recognizing what the discussions at Metro to make sure that there's lots of input by our operational teams that give us the ability to save our inventory. If the drought comes back, and we just watch the weather patterns and climate change, and we just need to be ahead of that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Oh, Mr. Wilson, Councillor Wilson.
I like mayor better.
He's still using that title.
Yeah, we obviously in retrospect we would have watered those trees if we thought this was going to happen. Like there was no. Well, we have the ability to.
Well, we do have the ability to water, but we've got a huge inventory. So largely our focus is on new trees, right? The younger trees. These were watered when they were young, and they seem to be doing fine. And but this was a very an unprecedented drought, and some of the inventory just is unable to keep up. They were doing reasonably well up until a short, near the end of that drought. But really now you see those that made it, and those that did make it. But largely our watering program is for the first 5 years primarily to make sure those get a really good solid root base. And these ones, they're all mature trees, and we just kind of watch them.
Instead of showing it was too late.
Exactly, and that's a real challenge. But we'll do an inventory and we'll see what we need to replace.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's it.
Move adjourn.
Second.
Moved second, favor, opposed, carried.
Out on the next.